basically Dragon to serve its purpose as a lifeboat or an emergency departure vehicle. So Doug and I spent quite a bit of time getting the equipment prepared so that that vehicle is ready to go and execute that mission. And we probably did a little more as a part of that than other crews will do in the future. We've performed some connections with the computer systems to make sure that we can configure the communication between everything from the Soyuz to the rest of the space station back to Dragon if we needed to do that from inside of our small little vehicle, and we established that that stuff all works. And we'll continue to do small checkouts like that. We'll go through the process of powering down Dragon, taking it to its kind of hibernated state, and then bring it back up here in just a few short days just to make sure that that process goes smoothly. Again, every crew won't need to do that sort of an evaluation, but since it's the first flight, we really are putting her through her paces to make sure that any of the little aspects of the mission that it might be called upon to support, it's ready to do that. And so that's from the hibernated state, that's from a regular departure, or to, you know, serve as another environment for us to go and safe haven in should we need to if there was a problem on board space station. And we'll do all those things before we call her operational, and then really pick up with a primary task focused on helping Chris out on the space station side.
Leo Enright with Irish Television.
Congratulations, Bob and Doug, and as we say in Ireland, slán a bhaile, safe home. I have another question about launch and about something that was different this time. Your final call-out before SECO was Shannon, to which Hawthorne replied, Roger, Shannon. Now, obviously, Shannon is in Ireland, and I rather expect that we're going to be hearing this call-out a lot in the years to come. So a lot of people in Ireland are wondering, what was that all about?
Well, hello, Ireland. That's a great question. So the ascent trajectory offers us some opportunities if needed, if we have got a failure with the launch vehicle, to abort. And some of those scenarios involve aborting fairly close to Kennedy Space Center, along the east coast of the United States, all the way up towards Newfoundland even, into Canada. And then once our trajectory hits a certain point and we get high enough, we are going to abort forward to the UK and the Ireland area specifically, and we can do that in the later stages of our powered flight before the engine shut down. So that's our call to Mission Control and Hawthorne to let them know that we see that change in the abort destination if that eventuality is needed.
Sophie Sanchez, Chicago Now.
Hola from Chicago. Doug, as a test pilot, what was it like for you taking control of Endeavour for the first time? And then if you can both share a little bit about the docking procedure, how it compared to the Soyuz docking procedure. Thank you.
Flying the Dragon was exactly how we expected it to be, and that was one of the reasons we wanted to do the manual flight test twice. So we did it shortly after we got to orbit on our first day, and then when we were on the final portion of the docking axis, we did it again yesterday. And it's all to prove that that capability works for future crews if need be. Most folks are familiar with the fact that Dragon is designed to be totally automated from the time it launches until the time it returns to Earth. But if there's any systems failures or other issues, we would like to know with confidence that if we take over manually, the vehicle will do what we need it to do.
Dave Mosier.
Oh. Thank you so much for taking my call, and congratulations on your flight. It was amazing to watch. Chris, what was the biggest thing you felt or thought as Endeavour approached the ISS? And Bob and Doug, same question for you. What were your biggest thoughts or emotions as you pulled up to this place you haven't been in many years? And I'm also curious. I want to ask the spacesuit question a different way. What's your 5-star review? Well, what would you rate it? What would you say about the spacesuits and if you had to review them online? Thank you.
I'll take the first part of that question from the space station side of things. What was going through my mind while they were, well, there's sort of several phases. One was during launch, and that was quite exciting for the three of us on board. We flew directly over the Kennedy Space Center 2 minutes before launch, got some nice pictures of the launch pad. We were out over the ocean at the time of engine ignition, so we couldn't quite see. Plus, we were in the day, and KSC was in the day, so we didn't see the actual launch. But that was very, very exciting, and the three of us were just cheering, just much like you were, I'm sure. Fast forward to yesterday when we were watching the vehicle do its stair-step maneuver up to our altitude, and Yvonne and I could see, we were looking out the cupola window, we saw it very far away, about 19, 20 kilometers, and then it got brighter and brighter and bigger, and it struck me that that little tiny dot was going to be fixed to a piece of metal that was about 15 meters from where I was looking, where I was standing, so to speak. And then they came up to our same altitude and started coming directly in on the docking axis. And I had the camera out at one particular point, and I cracked open the window to get a picture, and I realized that inside that spacecraft were two of my colleagues and friends, and they're going 17,500 miles an hour, and we're going 17,500 miles an hour, and we are bringing these two vehicles together with a computer and them backing it up, and I could monitor this process on the telemetry. And so from a technical nature, I was pretty amazed at the whole thing, just realizing what was happening. But then you fold into that the historic aspect of the whole day, and what it means to America, what it means to our nation's space program, what it means to international cooperation and commercial cooperation. It just was kind of awe-inspiring, to be honest with you. And then that was a fleeting moment back to the operations, but it was pretty impressive day, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
As far as the docking was concerned, Dragon flew pretty similar to Shuttle. It had very similar characteristics. The automation would have made did make the same corrections that I think either Bob or I would have as we were coming in. And the thing that really stood out to both of us, and we mentioned it as soon as we docked, is we didn't feel the docking. It was just so smooth, and then we were docked, which in Shuttle you felt a little bit of a jolt, nothing real heavy, but you felt it. And we asked the guys on board station the same question, and they said we didn't feel it either, which is typical, more typical. But anyway, that really, really surprised me. So that either just the velocities or the strength of the docking mechanism really absorbed any inertia as we came into dock, and it was pretty neat that we couldn't feel anything at all on board Endeavour.
I think for both Doug and I, we'd have to give the suits a 5-star rating. You know, each suit is point designed for a very specific mission. This one is point designed for us to sit in our seats and protect us if there's a fire or any sort of a problem with the atmosphere on board Dragon. It's leaking out or has smoke in it or anything like that. And so these suits didn't have to do that job for us, which was nice. But it was clear that they were ready. We had great checks of the suits as we continued uphill and pre-launch, and I just can't say enough about the SpaceX team, Chris Trigg, Eric, Maria, and all the other members of that team have just done an outstanding job supporting us, getting them tailor fit to fit on us, and we look forward to seeing how they perform.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station.
And that concludes our event as we count down to 20 continuous years of humans living and working on the International Space Station. Thank you to all participants from JSC, PAO, and the media. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Welcome this morning to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Marie Lewis with NASA Public Affairs.
And I'm Josh Barrett with Boeing Communications. Starliner is nearly ready for our uncrewed orbital flight test. You can see it over our shoulders, lit up on the launch pad. It's a little windy out, but right now that won't stop liftoff, scheduled for 6:36 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's take a look again at the pad. Ground crews are currently wrapping up operations in the White Room. I want to take you back to about 4:34 a.m. this morning. That's when they actually closed the hatch inside the White Room. We should have some video of them wrapping up that operation.
Yeah, and
there you go. There you see it. Now the pad team is actually running about 45 minutes ahead of schedule, which is really awesome news on their first time doing this.
Yeah, remarkable, because this is the first time they're doing it for real. It was so cool. I mean, this video you're seeing was a little bit earlier this morning. Like you said, they're ahead of schedule, so they've already left the White Room, but everything is looking good, and there's no crew flying today, but teams are operating just as if astronauts are on board. Now this is a live view. You see the crew still up there on the tower, and as we get closer to launch, we're going to see the White Room and the crew access arm start to swing away from Starliner in preparation for liftoff, but there they are making those final preparations to leave the pad.
Now, this uncrewed test flight is incredibly important for us to prove that we can safely fly astronauts to the International Space Station.
This is a huge day for the entire NASA, Boeing, and United Launch Alliance teams. Since the Space Shuttle program ended, we've all been working hard to return human spaceflight capability to the United States. We call this effort NASA's Commercial Crew Program. It's a partnership we have with Boeing and SpaceX, and today is Starliner's big debut.
And our goal is for everyone watching today to see a mission as close as possible to a crewed flight and to collect the mountains of data that we can only learn from flying.
It's also the first time our mission teams have a chance to put Starliner through its paces. We've all been practicing, but now, as you can see in the control room, it's game day.
We're really excited to show you how this all comes together. Teams from NASA, Boeing, and ULA all have to be in lockstep to be successful today. We all have people spread across the country sitting on console. We have 3 control rooms here in Florida. United Launch Alliance's Atlas Spaceflight Operations Center is on the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Starliner's launch control, the Boeing Mission Control Center, is just across the street from us here at Kennedy.
And NASA's Emergency Operations Center is activated, ready to respond at a moment's notice. Then in Houston at Johnson Space Center, the space station control room is following the mission closely as well.
And Starliner's mission control is just down the hall from that space station control room. That's where flight controllers are actually commanding the vehicle right now. And finally, ULA also has teams in Denver monitoring ascent.
So we want to check in first with the Atlas launch control team. They're just a few miles away from where we're sitting here in Florida, and their job is to make sure the rocket stays healthy right now, leading up to and during launch.
We have United Launch Alliance's Dylan Rice monitoring this morning's activities over in the ASOC. Dylan, how's the rocket doing?
Hey, good morning, Josh and Marie. Things are great here this morning. It's been a really good morning. As you can see, the team rolled Atlas, Centaur, and Starliner out to the pad a day ago. The teams have been working overnight to prepare the vehicle for launch. All of our propellant tanks are loaded. The vehicle is in stable topping while the ground crews finish up their final loading of the cargo on the Starliner. And I understand all that's been completed now, and the team is starting to close out the White Room for operations today. This is a big day for us. This is a return of Atlas to its human spaceflight heritage. The first U.S. astronaut to orbit the Earth was John Glenn, and he launched on an Atlas LV-3B rocket just up the road at Complex 14 back in February 1962. So we're really excited about getting Atlas back to the human spaceflight business. It's also a return to service of our dual engine configuration of Centaur. The dual engine Centaur is very uniquely qualified to provide the amount of thrust and the type of flight profile necessary in order to give Starliner a safe and smooth ride to the International Space Station. Also on Centaur, we've added an emergency detection system, which is kind of a supplemental telemetry system that it independently evaluates all of the data on board the vehicle to ensure that the ride is as safe as possible for astronauts when the time comes for that. We take safety very seriously. It's at the forefront of everything we do, and adding that emergency detection system to Centaur was just one more way we can assure that the astronauts get the safest ride possible when it comes time to launch those on the next mission. Atop Centaur is a CST-specific vehicle adapter. It's a truss and ring structure that basically holds the Starliner to Centaur, and along with that is an aeroskirt, which helps enhance the aerodynamics and stability of the vehicle during flight. But today's not just about testing the rocket. It's also an opportunity to demonstrate the processes and procedures that we're going to use when it comes time to actually load crew on board that spacecraft, and we've been working on that this morning. So for now, the ground crew's still up on the crew access tower. They are closing out the white room. As I understand, the team is wrapped up in the capsule. You guys showed that video just a few minutes ago of the hatch closure. So our team has taken over and preparing the crew access tower in the white room for launch. That's it for the update here at the ASOC. Back to you guys over at Kennedy Space Center.
All right, thanks a lot, Dylan. Now, if you remember space shuttle launches, you might recall there were fewer control rooms, but this is a whole new way of doing things, and that's really the whole point of the commercial crew program.
Exactly. Today you have a commercial spacecraft launching on a commercial rocket, and both of those have their own control rooms, and NASA is watching it all, making sure everyone's making the right calls, and that's going to be especially important when crew's on board.
So let's learn a little bit more about those commercial vehicles on the pad behind us today. First is the Atlas V rocket that's made and operated by United Launch Alliance. It's a workhorse rocket with 80 successful missions to date. This is a special version of Atlas made just for Starliner. ULA calls it an N22. That stands for no payload fairing, 2 solid rocket motors, and a dual-engine Centaur upper stage, a first for the Atlas V.
And on top of Atlas is Boeing CST-100 Starliner. It comes in 2 main sections, a crew module and a service module. The crew module is where the astronauts would be. It's reusable up to 10 times, and it features lightweight thermal protection as well as an innovative landing system using parachutes and airbags. Those make Starliner the first American orbital capsule able to land on land. The service module houses most of our propulsion systems, including the on-orbit maneuvering thrusters and our low-altitude abort motors. We also have a high-efficiency solar array on the bottom, which covers a micrometeoroid and orbital debris shield.
Now we want to check in on how that spacecraft is doing, and we happen to have one of Starliner's engineers, Tori Pedrati. She's in Boeing's Launch Control Center monitoring the launch team there for us.
Tori, how are things going for the BMCC's very first mission?
Good morning, Josh and Marie. Everything is going great here in the BMCC. As you said, this is the Boeing Mission Control Center. This is the heart of Starliner while we're on the ground, while we're doing launch operations, and then we will transition control over to Houston. Here in Florida, we are just super excited, and as you can see, we have a lot of people tied in to their consoles here. Now, we have a bunch of different teams in this control room, not only NASA teams and Boeing teams working together, but analysts also looking at all of the different subsystems, including thermal, propulsion, ECLIS, anything that the spacecraft needs to continue on its mission to the International Space Station. So looking back at the rocket now, you can see that we were just talking a little bit about the pad team. Now, this pad team was a joint ULA and Boeing team. And this is only the second time that we've had people near a fueled Atlas V. So when you saw that hatch closure and that white room clear out just a few minutes ago,